To understand anyone's mind, you need to master 3 techniques. These skills are essential for gaining insight into and understanding the thinking process of others. By mastering these methods, you can easily identify and grasp anyone's thinking. Now, let me share a Buddhist story that will teach you how to read the minds of others. A long time ago, in a quiet little village, there lived 2 brothers. My brother is blind and therefore stays at home most of the time. The younger brother is busy working on the farm. However, their farmland is often damaged by many animals, a problem that has always troubled the younger brother. Finally, the younger brother came up with a solution. He decided to ask his blind brother for help. He asked him to sit in the farmland, use his hearing to identify the sounds of animals, and shout loudly to scare them away. So the younger brother built a small shack in the field and placed his older brother in it. He explained to his brother that as long as he heard the sound of animals, he would call loudly and the animals would be scared away, thus protecting the crops. The older brother accepted the younger brother's offer and started sitting in the field. Whenever he hears animals, he calls loudly and successfully scares them away. This method continued for many days. One day a deer broke through the fence into the field and quickly fled. Soon after, a king was chasing the deer. The king also came to the field, noticed the blind brother, and asked him if he had seen a deer. The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, I am blind. How can I see a deer? But I can tell you that chasing these animals away from my fields is not worth your time." The king was deeply shaken by the blind brother's words and began to question how he had learned this. The king asked the blind brother if he was lying, because he claimed to be blind. However, the blind brother replied, "That deer is actually a pregnant doe, Your Majesty. Are you really willing to chase and kill a pregnant doe? Therefore, I tell you, she's not worthy of your pursuit. You shouldn't waste your time pursuing her." The king was very surprised when he heard this. He could not understand how a blind man could recognize the pregnant doe. He began to wonder, how could a blind man know these things? If anyone knew, how could he be sure that the deer I was chasing was actually pregnant? How could he tell me this information with such confidence? Even though he was blind, the king felt the need to verify this and instructed his commander, "I want that animal alive. I need to confirm if it is really pregnant." The blind man seemed very sure of this and said, "I need to investigate. Please go and find out if it is pregnant." The king's order was conveyed to the previous commander, who told the king that the blind brother was right, that the deer was indeed pregnant. The king was full of doubts, wondering how the blind man knew that the deer was pregnant. He decided to let the blind man get to the bottom of it. "I may not know whether you are really blind, but I invited you here to ask you something. Can you give me a correct answer? Answer my question." The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, you can ask me anything you want to ask, and I will answer truthfully." The king praised, "You are a wise man and seem to have a keen insight into many things. I called you here today, wondering if my wife will be faithful to me." The blind brother thought for a moment and then said, "Your Majesty, what kind of question is this? Your marriage has lasted for many years, and now you want to know these things. Why do these questions suddenly appear in your mind?" "King," he insisted, "you must answer this question. If you don't give me an answer, I will punish you with death." Hearing the king's threat, the blind brother said, "Your Majesty, if you want the answer to this question, you have to do me a favor." The king asked, "Tell me, what do I need to do?" The blind brother replied, "You must leave your wife alone in a room." The king was very angry after hearing this, but finally agreed to the request. The king ordered his commander to leave the blind brother and the queen alone in a room. It was at that moment that the blind brother expressed his desire to touch the queen. Upon hearing this, the queen became furious and began to kick the blind brother violently with both feet. Then the blind brother somehow escaped and ran to the king. The blind brother told the king, "Your Majesty, your wife is unfaithful." The king was angry, drew his sword, and ran to the queen. He warns her that any lies will result in her execution and asks her if she is loyal. The queen replied, "Your Majesty, you can kill me too, but I am unfaithful." The king was happy because everything was clear. What the blind brother said is true. The king immediately went to the blind brother and asked, "How do you know that my wife is unfaithful?" The blind man replied, "Your Majesty, it's simple. I told your wife that I wanted to touch her, and she became very angry and started beating me. When I told her that I wanted to touch her, she could have said no, but instead she started hitting me. In the process, she touched my entire body. Now you tell me, how can such a woman be loyal?" King prays, "You were very smart. Okay, let's continue." He added the right question. "I will let you get out of here and tell me, am I really my father's son or someone else's son?" The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, why do you have to dwell on this irrelevant question? It matters. You are the king of this country, and it doesn't matter who your parents are. Let the question go." But the king insisted, "No, I want the exact answer to this question. Otherwise this question will always bother me. So I want to know the truth." The blind brother replied, "Now, I can tell you whose child you are, but before that, I want you to promise that you will not be angry with me because of the answer." The king said, "I promise. I won't be angry with you for the answer." Then the blind brother said to the king, "You were indeed your father's son, but you are also in the shadow of a stingy businessman." Upon hearing the news, the king rushed to his mother and asked her the truth. "Please tell me, am I really my father's son or someone else's? If you don't tell me the truth, I will dedicate my life to this king." The mother said, "Son, you are indeed your father's child, but you are also under the shadow of a stingy businessman." The king was very happy to hear the news and immediately returned to his blind brother. He asked, "How do you know that the shadow of a stingy businessman is on me?" The blind man replied, "Your Majesty, you asked me many questions and I gave you the correct answers. If you were any other king, I would have got a lot of rewards, but you didn't give me a penny. From this point of view, I guess you were very stingy." The king laughed and said, "Anything is fine. I will give it to you, but tell me, how do you know what is right and what is wrong? How can you give such an accurate answer?" The blind brother said, "Your Majesty, I was born blind. If I could be at ease, I could easily understand anyone's thoughts. The mind has its own language, and this language can be seen through the actions of a person by looking at his body. We can understand through the lips the way they work and their activities. Based on this we can know what anyone is thinking. But I am blind, so I perceive through actions. If I want to know something, I have to assign the task to the next person and look at that how people work. Based on how he accomplished the task, I could understand what was going on in his mind." The king asked, "Does this mean that I can also understand other people's thoughts?" The blind brother said, "Of course, you can also understand anyone's thoughts, but before that, you need to work hard on your own. It's about calming your mind and bringing your mind into the present moment. So, today I am going to tell you 3 methods. These 3 methods are very simple, but Your Majesty, before that you must do one thing: concentrate your mind. When we concentrate our minds, integrate our minds into the present moment, we can understand other people's thoughts, because a person is thinking about the present moment. We must also only have this way, so that our thoughts can enter the present and understand their thoughts. If we are thinking about things in the past, how do we know that the next person is now what are you thinking? Because we're stuck in the past. First, to know anyone's thoughts, we need to focus our thoughts and bring them to the present. The blind brother told the king, "Your prayer is yes. Your Majesty, I will tell you 3 methods by which you can easily understand anyone's thoughts." The blind brother said to the king, "Oh, king, the first way is to pay attention to your eyes. When we talk to someone, the most important thing is to look into their eyes, because although eyes don't speak, they convey a lot of information. If we learn to understand the signals in a person's eyes, we can tell what's going on in their head. what they're thinking about, and what they're about to do. I don't have eyes myself, but I learned this technique from the Venerable Gautama Buddha. He was my teacher and guide many years ago. Back then, I still had eyes and understood people's thoughts through their eyes. So, if you also want to know what others are thinking, you should focus on their eyes to see where they are looking. If their eyes wander when you are talking to them, it means they are looking for ways to escape the conversation. If the person just avoids it with their eyes, they may be lying, which means they are afraid their lie will be exposed. People will know the truth. But if their eyes are still looking at you, they're probably honest, interested in the topic, and want to talk to you and share their thoughts. Also, watch how their eyebrows move. If their eyebrows are drooping, and if they look away again, they may be thinking hard or worrying about other things. If their eyebrows are raised and their eyes are getting bigger, they may be surprised or curious about what you are saying. The size of their pupils is also an important signal. If their pupils get bigger, it means they are like you, or something you say makes them excited or happy. Smaller pupils could mean they don't like you, or you say something that makes them uncomfortable or angry. Look to see if their eyes are red or white. The white part of the eye is called the sclera. If the sclera is red, they may be tired, stressed, or sick. They may be less willing to talk to you. I remember once I met a tired traveler, and we chatted for many days. His eyes were looking around, but never at me, which meant he was worried and wanted to leave as soon as possible. I thought he might be hiding something and didn't want to talk to me. Later I asked him more questions and found out he had a secret plan. Similarly, other facial expressions can also help us understand a person's thoughts easily. Sometimes a person shows different emotions through his face. If you observe a person's facial expression carefully, you can understand it easily. If a person looks disappointed, sad, or very happy, and you can also know how they are feeling inside. All these things can be judged by their facial expressions, and your majestic face is like a picture that shows the inner feelings of people's feelings, even if they don't say anything. If you want to understand people better, you have to pay attention to these silent signals. Seeing someone make a small sad expression with the corners of their mouth turned down usually means they are unhappy, or have lost something. You can also tell in their eyes and body language if they are depressed. On the other hand, a big, genuine smile that lifts the eyes and cheeks is a sign of happiness, friendliness, and kindness. When they are younger, the eyes are very important, and you can be sure the smile is genuine. Look at the space between a person's eyebrows, the wrinkles in their skin, and when it becomes deeper and tighter, it usually means they are confused, thinking hard, or trying to understand something difficult or new. The way they mouth can also tell you that a lot. A closed and squeezed mouth can mean they disagree, don't like something, or don't want to talk, but an open and relaxed mouth means they are open, comfortable, and ready to talk. When you better see and understand these signs on faces, you'll be able to tell what people are thinking and feeling, whether they speak out loud about their feelings or remain silent. Their faces will tell you what's going on in their minds, whether a person speaks in their language or not. You understand everything from their face. Your Majesty, I want to tell you a story. I once met a grieving man who asked me for help but seemed like he didn't care. However, I noticed a tiny line on his forehead, indicating that something was on his mind. I pushed him to talk to me, and once he shared what was bothering him, his mood improved significantly. I helped him with genuine care, and he gave me a real smile in return and joy in his eyes. This shows that he feels happy and relieved. On the other hand, a frown expresses anxiety or confusion, while a raised eyebrow shows surprise or curiosity. By observing a person's facial expressions, we can easily understand how they are feeling internally. Then, Your Majesty, let me tell you the third way, which is to understand a person's thoughts through gestures and body language. When a person speaks, notice that they constantly use gestures to express. In addition to language, body language conveys a person's thoughts. The body and gestures can say a lot and are a secret form of conversation without words. You can find out what a person is really trying to say by looking at their gestures and body language. When someone taps their fingers quickly or makes a sound on something, it can mean they are bored or want to end the conversation. I once met a guy who was trying to sell me something and his gestures let me know he was nervous. So I asked him to give me a better price, and he was also surprised. When someone crosses their arms, it may mean that they don't like it or are hiding something. This gesture is a form of protection to protect their thoughts and feel, and don't let others get hurt. By picking up on this signal, we can talk to them kindly and carefully, making them feel more comfortable and open. When someone leans forward, it may mean they are interested in you and are listening carefully to what you have to say. It means they are interested in what you have to say and want to know more. By paying attention to these physical signs, we can easily understand their inner thoughts. I once met a smart teacher who always remained calm, but always tended to move forward on topics of interest. His eyes were always on the other person, full of desire for more information. Sometimes when people are talking to you, they unconsciously touch their faces. This small movement usually means they are nervous, thinking, or having an important idea. These small movements are part of communication, and we need to have the patience to observe them carefully and give them the attention they deserve. These little signals act like a quiet book, revealing the emotions and thoughts hidden within, giving us a deeper understanding of the person we are communicating with. While observing these body languages, we must also be patient by focusing our attention and bringing our thoughts back to the present moment. We can truly notice these subtle behaviors and understand them. If we dwell on the past or plan for the future, we will miss the essence of people's body language and never gain insight into their inner thoughts. Saints and enlightened beings are able to read others easily, precisely because their minds are focused and peaceful. As you mentioned, this calmness and focus allow them to easily understand other people's thoughts and convey deep wisdom. Finally, in Zen journey, we explore 3 ways to understand the thoughts of others by paying attention to their eyes and facial expressions, as well as gestures and body language. This is not only a study of language and communication, but also a practice of concentration and present moment. Thank you for your companionship and support on this journey. Knowledge has the power to enhance lives, and your support makes the journey richer and more interesting. Once again, we express our deepest gratitude, and may you gain more insight and peace in the Zen state of life.